Hello, my name is Jim Collins, and I'm the owner of Collins Entertainment. Welcome to the Connecticut Wedding Channel and our very first episode. Every week, we will speak with a Connecticut vendor who discusses their service and offers tips for couples who are overwhelmed about the process of hiring their vendors. Today, I'm talking with Matt Van Ness. Matt is the owner and operator of MV Film Productions based out of Meriden, Connecticut. He's a wedding filmmaker and cinematographer. Matt has been providing services for couples for 9 years, and he's very passionate about creating motion pictures and telling a real story. Matt, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, man, you got it. This is awesome.
Very cool. So, Matt, tell me about how you became passionate about cinematography.
Yeah, it's quite a long story, actually, so I'll kind of condense it a little bit so that way we're not here for the whole time just hearing about my story. But long story short, I have a very large extended family, and when I was a teenager, even younger than that, we were always going down to family weddings. And I'm not the type of person at the time when I was a teenager who was going to go out and dance and hang out. I was more kind of like behind the scenes type of attitude. So I loved watching like what went on for the wedding. And actually, I started watching the photographers at first and kind of got into that. And then one of my family members had video. So I kind of was like, well, what's going on there? So I started watching the videographer. And at the time, there was no cinematography. There was no short form storytelling. It was more of a documentary traditional look. But, that kind of sparked it. And I said, oh, that's pretty cool that, he's recording video. And later on in life, my cousins, this couple can watch in motion picture in real time, watch and hear what happened on their wedding day, whether it's 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, etc. And that kind of got me thinking, because I was thinking maybe I'll go into photography, but when I saw motion picture and being able to relive those moments in real time, that kind of sparked it all. So it really started from going to family weddings and just kind of being bored there and then seeing what was going on behind the scenes. And then from there, I got interested.
Right. And so it became the passion. So
exactly. I mean, I had always been involved in video and everything like that, but I never wanted to do like Hollywood production, not be the next Martin Scorsese. Everybody says, remember me when I'm famous, and I don't plan on doing that. I want to be known for what we do with weddings and the wedding industry and everything like that.
Right. Yeah. So tell me about the first wedding event that you worked.
Oh man. The first one, well, I have to say there's two quick stories of that, one being family and one being professional. The family one, I had one of my cousins who we see every year on vacations and stuff like that. She actually was not planning on having video. She was just having a photographer. And I said, you know what, let me bring down some basic video gear. And it's funny in how I think about it now, where it's like the quality of work back then to what I'm doing now is like night and day difference. But I said, let me bring something down. Let me try it. And what, worst comes to worst, if it doesn't work out, you didn't pay for it. It's not like you're going to lose out. If anything, you're going to gain from it. So I said, let me bring this down. Let me try it. So we did. I shot the prep, ceremony, creative stuff, reception, the whole 9 yards, and put it to iMovie back in the day on a Mac. And, I kind of gave them something that I wasn't really quite sure of, but it gave me an idea of where I could go with it. And I started doing a few more family weddings and everything like that. And then when I was in high school, one of my directors, his sister was actually getting married. And at the time I was doing video in high school. So he actually reached out with his sister to me and said, hey man, we think you'd be a good fit to start like a professional wedding for my sister. And I had known that I was very close with them, the whole family and everything like that. And she hired me. And that was a little bit nerve-wracking because that was my first wedding ever, first actually getting a check, and first ever, going out and working with a professional photographer, a professional DJ or a band. Can't remember what it was. This was almost 10 years ago. And doing it and coming back and saying, okay, well, I have all this footage now. How do I create a story? Well, at the time, I wasn't really thinking a story. I was just creating a video for them and, kind of watching some how-tos and this and that. And then I kind of figured out my own style and then took it from there. And then, 10 years later, here we are.
Do you ever revisit that footage to go back and just see how far you've come from that time you shot that first wedding?
It's funny. I have not recently. I mean, I have just because, going back through memories, I still talk to the family. I still hang out with her brother, actually her two brothers. I still see quite often. Yeah. And, I still once in a while say, most likely it's more like the highlight that we look at versus the actual full on. I think back then it was like almost 2-3 hours long. I don't watch the whole thing, obviously, but it was a good wedding. It was a fun wedding. I remember the venue and, I remember the photographers and it was a good time, but to be honest with you, I don't, but every once in a while we still have it. Like literally if I needed to pull it up, I still have a computer that can open up the footage. So if I had to for that couple, I could, but as of right now, we don't bother going back right now, at least.
Yeah. I mean, in the DJ industry, what I like to do is I'll I'll film my work and you know, how I do, how I'm on the microphone to make sure that when I go back to it, and I always see if there's new things I can do
Yeah.
to improve and set up moments properly. So going back and looking, and I used to do that as a musician too. So
Okay.
I constantly go back and listen to live recordings as a singer. You know, that's something I'm passionate about too. So I did that from the beginning and saying, okay, could have done this better, could have done this better. So I'm always looking for ways to improve.
Right. It's almost like a tool, a teaching tool to go back and look upon.
I think it is, because you'll pick up on things that you didn't notice during the event because you're in the moment. And so I think you can learn from that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, as you know, I mean, there's many professionals who you work with on a team with at weddings.
Right.
You discuss the communication with other vendors either before the event or during it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that a question you're asking? Do I, or?
Yeah.
So what I personally do is like, and you're talking about specifically with the vendor team or with my couple? I'm sorry.
Sure. With the vendor team.
Yeah, usually, like, for example, if it's a photographer, and I'm going to use photography because video and photography are probably the closest that are going to be working together throughout the entire day. Because if you think about it, myself as a cinematographer and the photographer, you know, we're with the couple pretty much the entire day, from bridal prep all the way to the end of the night. Not necessarily to the literally end of the night where the lights come on, but, you know, for the most part, you know, the live band or the DJ, you know, is not going to be there during bridal prep. You know, hair and makeup's not going to be there for the reception. You know, the caterer is not going to be there for the ceremony. So really, myself and the photographers are the ones with them all day long. So if it's a photographer that let's, for example, say I know and I work with a ton with throughout the wedding season, or I really know really well, I'll usually send them like an email, a text, or a message online just to say, hey, you know, excited to work with you guys. But at that point, usually the photographer knows who the video is just because they ask their couple, just like I ask my couples during my meetings and my timeline structures, you know, do you have photography? And if you do, who is it? If it's somebody I don't know, for example, or I haven't worked with them in so long where I don't remember their style, you know, I'll give them an actual call and say, hey, can we touch base? You know, I have a wedding next month in January with a photographer who's actually from Texas. And I know that the couple is friends with him personally, and they're also friends with me. But, you know, I called him the other day, and we just kind of got a game plan. And I know about a week or so before, when he comes into Connecticut, we're going to meet up at like a Starbucks and just take a tour of the venue and just give him some pointers. But I don't normally do that because it's a lot of work. If it's something special like that, I will. But most of the time, it's like, hey, text message, you know, hey, so-and-so, excited to work with you. You know, just, you know, message me back if you want to. Otherwise, I'll see you at prep on the day of the wedding, that type of thing. And 9 times out of 10, it's never an issue, just because it's so easygoing to work with. And most of the time, the photographers that we work with are easygoing. So it's a good team when it comes together for the day. For sure.
And it's important that everybody communicates, because if you're at an event and you think of something that is so important to capture, such as the introductions and where a photographer is, where you are positioned, where your MC is positioned, if they're on the center of the dance floor, how that's going to be, how that moment is going to be introduced to make sure that everyone knows, well, this is the best vantage point for me. What works the best for you?
Right, exactly.
To a DJ or MC, kind of just assuming things and not communicating with you, and setting it up so it's not going to work to the best to capture that moment, and just that communication.
And I also, you know, communication, teamwork, and just making sure, like, you know, working with my couples when I book with them, you know, there's a lot of planning that goes on, even for cinema and video. There's a lot of planning going on. You know, we don't want to be caught with, you know, so-and-so singing. We didn't know about it because we didn't ask them at a pre-planned meeting. And that's the same thing with photography. You know, I like to let them know. I like to let the DJ know. If I find something out and I feel it's beneficial to everybody, I like to spread the word. It's not just for me, because I don't want to be that guy that's the only one to capture it. And then somebody say, well, why didn't you tell me what's going on?
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. And it's so important.
I would hope that would come back from DJ, live band, photographer, caterer, that type of thing. Any vendor, I hope they would let me know that, saying, you know, hey, by the way, we just found out Dad wants to give a small speech and that wasn't planned. Oh, okay, good to know. I'll go get set up for that, you know?
Yeah, and I think, and I don't know that couples, when they come into this whole thing, realize how much of a pre-production things are. Yeah, whether that's on your end or on the entertainer's end. Absolutely. But I mean, me alone, I'm doing at least 40 hours of planning and post-production excuse me, pre-production before the wedding day.
Right.
And I think a lot of couples think that you just show up and you press play and that's it. And you're playing music.
Same thing, record, I hear that all the time from the bridal party or from the parents that just aren't educated. It's not that they're stupid or wrong or anything like that. They just don't know. And that's like me going into their profession and saying, well, why don't you just write out the check? It's like, no, you don't know what goes on behind the scenes,
There's a lot of details. And the more that you can get a hold of beforehand and find out about, the smoother, obviously, the event's going to flow.
Absolutely.
And the better the moments will be when you're able to capture them.
Absolutely. You got
it. Is there a particular wedding that comes to mind where you felt you did your best work and captured the greatest moments for?
Man, I don't know. That's a really tough question. I mean, I love all of my couples. I love all of the weddings that we've done. There's really not a wedding that we take on that we don't, going into it, we're like, oh, we got to go film someone's wedding. Like, that's not our attitude. Like, we book specifically with certain couples because we feel the connection, we feel the vibe and the groove from them, and that they're excited for video and that they're ready to go. So when we come in, we tell them, hey, let's get this tracking motion shot. They're like, yeah, let's go, versus, oh, we got to do this for Matt. We don't get that attitude a lot, which we're very fortunate for. Since there's a lot of people out there that have those type of couples, and it makes it not really creative for them as the filmmaker or the videographer or whatever they are.
Right.
To work with. But I mean, I would have to say there's one wedding in particular that we did. It was the summer of last year. It was on 4th of July weekend. We were down in New York, and it was New Haven, then to the Bronx. Well, but the good portion of the Bronx for the reception. And not only did they have fireworks in the end night, they had a kick butt venue. They had an awesome bridal party. But they had a choreographed dance actually, and it was to the song from Dirty Dancing and Time of Our Lives. And
yes,
the whole choreographed dance, he learned the dance. He wasn't really a dancer. He learned the dance and nailed it. I mean, I actually took, in post-production, I took the real video with I forget the actor's name from the movie, but I took their video and
Patrick Swayze.
Yes, I lined him up, and I'm like, wow, he's doing the whole moving and everything like that. I mean, the only thing that didn't have was a stage for her to jump off of.
Right.
Spot out, and the best part was that nobody knew but the bridal party and ourselves. So it was almost like a flash mob where everybody all of a sudden just started dancing in the bridal party and nobody knew. And I just think that wedding, it always stands out in my mind. It's one of my favorite couples. Not that all of my couples aren't my favorite, but it just, that moment stands out. I mean, we had an amazing ceremony. We had an amazing creative session at Yale. The photo team was amazing. Everybody just came together, and I thought that was really, really awesome. But in going back to your question, I mean, I can't think of one that stands out really besides that one, just because they're all amazing. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I don't want to pinpoint anybody, but I have to say for that wedding, nobody's done something that extravagant with fireworks on 4th of July, that type of thing. But, this year for 2016, we had amazing weddings. I mean, even weddings that had a weather like today where it's snowing out and raining out, some of my best work has been done with the weather conditions not being the best.
Yeah.
Rides and the venue, they're all amazing. So
that's awesome. And that's just a perfect example of creating a moment, and people walk out of that reception. Wow.
Right.
Absolutely. Remember that.
Exactly. But, I also think that, you take a small venue, you take a backyard wedding, you take something that's, thinking yourself going into it like, oh, this can't be that creative. And not that we have that attitude, but, some people may say, oh, how could this be creative? And all of a sudden we come up with these shots, and we did this pose in a box that's like 4x5, and they're like, how did you do that? And like, that's where creativity comes from. So
right. So Matt, tell me some common mistakes that couples make basically when choosing to hire a wedding professional. More specifically, filmmaker.
Yeah, I would say, to be honest with you, and there may be guys out there that disagree with this or whatnot, but I mean, it's my opinion. I feel that, and some may agree, I feel that video is overlooked these days. I feel that, for what we charge and the reason why we charge what we charge is because of our style, our quality of work, our professionalism, coming into meeting with the couples and just being that personal person, working with you on a timeline and the whole nine yards. I could go on for days with this, obviously, but video is something that's come around in like the past 10 years or so, I would say. Like in terms of, having video, I always give the example of, your parents to the couple may have had video. It may have been VHS, might have been, 16 millimeter film, who knows? But they may have had video, and it was great to have that documented, but it wasn't something that was very creative and very interesting to watch nowadays. And really the difference between traditional documentary style video and cinematography and creating a handcrafted film is really coming about this day and age, whereas photography has been around for a long, long time. I know some people that are still doing film. I know people that had slate when they dropped them in and had to get things developed to the digital age. So nothing against photography, but I feel like that's the first thing that people go to besides your DJ, besides your venue and your date when they're getting engaged. And it's like, well, the couples that come to us saying they're really interested in video, that's awesome. That means they're educated in my book. And the ones that aren't, there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel that we have to, when we give my pricing out there, they just automatically turn us down, or they say, no, we're not interested. And whether that's the price or whether they're just not interested in video, that's their case. But in my book, it's like, let me explain this to you. Let me educate why I think video is also very important and why I think you should have both photo and video, as well as your DJ or your live band, as well as your caterer and your wedding planner. It's a lot of money. I totally get it. But these are the moments where you're going to want to look back on and watch, because we've had couples before inquire with us, not necessarily book with us, and then we've gotten emails back from them after their wedding day is over. They didn't have video and they went with us. So it's not really a mistake. It's just more so they need to be educated and they need to know, here's the pros and cons of having video. Not really cons, but besides maybe pricing. But these are the pros, and this is why I think you should have video. And trust me, I'm going to go to more weddings than you'll ever go to in your lifetime in terms of my couples. So I know that you're going to want this. And it kind of it's like the light bulb going off, and whether they decide to go with this, that's great. And if they don't, I hopefully they have amazing kickbutt photos. That's all I can say.
Yeah. And there's moments that the photographer will capture, obviously, that you wouldn't, and vice versa too. So to have that extra footage, I mean, my wife and I, when we got married in 2004, we had a filmmaker too, a wedding filmmaker.
Yeah.
But it was all raw footage. So we had from start to finish. We didn't have any editing or post-production done to it, to 15 to 20 minute presentation or anything like that of the final product. So, but we're so glad that we did, because there were so many things. I mean, we had a very good photographer too, but so many moments were captured during the video that we're so thankful for having. And we go back and visit those and watch those on anniversaries and different times too.
Exactly. My biggest thing with video, and obviously this makes sense to anybody watching this, but video has audio. That's really the second half of it. Obviously photography doesn't have audio, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for video, I mean, unless somebody takes audio and lines up to their pictures, that's awesome. But in my book, it's like for example, we had a bride and groom whose grandmother gave a speech a while back. Well, she ended up passing away few months later on down the road. We just got the film literally right to them. So they were able to watch it with her grandmother, and then she passed away. But I know later on, 10, 20 years down the road in the anniversaries, they can still hear their grandmother's voice give that speech, where she was able to stand up out of the wheelchair, give that speech, and still have, life and emotion, everything like that, versus saying, oh, we didn't do video, and they just have photos, but they can't actually hear in real time that speech. That's where I feel I bring that up to my couples. And usually that's not necessarily that example, but that style is where they say, oh, honey, we need to think about video. So.
Yeah. And my mentor, Mitch Taylor, someone I learn from every day in my profession, mentioned that today and on his live Facebook group called Live at 7:55. And what was really interesting about it, he was talking about that and his grandfather passing away and the moment it happened. And I think it was 1983 when it happened, but his whole reason for explaining the story about that is just, there are moments that you can't get back.
Right.
And when you're there at a wedding, to be there, the people that are there matter. Right. And to be able to capture those moments with them there. Right. And this is a perfect example of what you described for that.
Exactly. And my whole thing too is that, that's why I tell my bride and grooms, it's good to have both, because there are certain things for video aspects that we don't capture. The photographer may have a bunch of group shots, a bunch of shots with certain family members like aunts and uncles and cousins that I know in the cinema world, we don't necessarily need to show because, one's a still image and one's moving, but it's the same image quality, so the photographer to capture those images for the album is awesome to look back on. And the video is awesome to have for audio. So it's good to have both, because we may not do something a photographer does and the photographer may do something we don't do. But at the same time, again, coming together as that one team to really create the stories for our couples.
Absolutely, Matt. Well, Matt, what's the best way for couples to reach you to discuss your services?
Yeah, just actually the couples can, well, obviously if they have my contact information for recommendations, that's awesome, but they can go right to my website. It's just mvfilmproductions.com. And actually later today, I'm going live with my new website. In the past couple of weeks, we've been working with my web designer, and we've actually been creating, it's not live right now at this minute at 10:25, but it will be live later today. It's going to have new content, everything new. So they can go right to the inquire page. They can send us an email. They can also call us. And if they're interested, we can always talk because we love to hear from our couples.
Well, thanks, Matt. So if you're feeling overwhelmed as a couple and you don't know where to start as far as finding a filmmaker, someone that's going to be able to capture these moments for you, someone that really cares about the success of your day, then contact Matt at MV Films.
Definitely.
Very good. Thanks again, Matt. We hope that this has been a great resource for you. And remember that all this is put together because your event matters. Until next time, take care, everyone.
Take care, guys. Thank you.